The discovery of the Lady of the Dunes in 1974 had a big impact on the town of Provincetown. The woman was discovered lying face down on a beach blanket. There was a blue cloth and a pair of Wrangler jeans under her head. Her long reddish hair was tied back in a ponytail with a shiny elastic band, and her toenails were painted in a pink colour. She was around 5 feet 6 inches tall, weighed 145 pounds and had an athletic build. The part of the crime scene that puzzled everyone the most was the woman's teeth. She had fancy dental work, including crowns worth between $5,000 and $10,000, a significant sum in those days. Some of her teeth had been taken out, which made the situation even scarier. But the most terrifying thing was that the woman's hands and one arm were missing. It seemed like the person who did this wanted to hide who they were or who the victim was. The woman's cause of death was a severe hit to the head, possibly inflicted with a military-type digging tool. There were also signs that something awful happened to her after she had already passed away, which was later revealed by a post-mortem report. The investigation looked into thousands of cases of missing people, and they checked a list of vehicles that were allowed in the area very closely. The fact that there were no signs of the sand or the beach blanket being disturbed made them think that this murder had been set up very carefully. It also made the investigators wonder if the woman's body had been placed in that spot on purpose. As they couldn't find any leads, they decided to bury her body in October 1974 after the case went cold. In 1979, the case was opened once again. A clay model of the woman's face was reconstructed so that someone might recognise her. They even dug up her remains in 1980 to check them. Unfortunately, these actions didn't give them any new information. They had to dig up the body again in March 2000 to test for DNA, which was a small bit of hope in a situation where they didn't have any new leads. Fast forward to May 2010, a CT scan of the woman's skull was carried out. These images were used by the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children to create another model. But unfortunately, even with these efforts, they still couldn't find any good leads, and the case kept confusing the investigators. Over time, they explored different clues to find out who the Lady of the Dunes was. In 1987, a woman from Canada said she saw something bad happen in Massachusetts in 1972, but they couldn't find her to ask more. Another woman thought that the person in the reconstruction looked a lot like her sister, who had gone missing in Boston in 1974. After many years of speculation and investigation, a breakthrough finally came in 2022. The skeletal remains of the Lady of the Dunes were sent to Othram, a forensic genomics company. From these remains, they made her DNA profile, which would be used to identify her distant family members, and found faraway family members.
Today, over 48 years after her murder and discovery, we can finally say her name.
On October the 31st, 2022, the FBI announced that the victim had been identified as Ruth Marie Terry. Her identity was uncovered through investigative genealogy, the same method that had successfully solved other cold cases, including the notorious Golden State Killer and the Nation River Lady.
But it didn't really feel like we thought there was some murderer in our midst. It just seemed so uncharacteristic for Provincetown that it never occurred to us that the murderer would have been anything but some transient.
The moment they found out that the woman's name was Ruth, it changed everything in the Lady of the Dunes case. It brought her out of the darkness where she had been hidden for almost 5 decades. The Lady of the Dunes was more than just an unidentified victim. She had a name and a life. Born on September the 8th, 1936, in a mountainside shack in Whitewell, Tennessee, Ruth Marie Terry's early years were marked by hardship. Her mother, Eva, passed away when Ruth was just a child, leaving her to face the challenges of life without the guiding presence of a mother. In 1957, following a short-lived marriage, Ruth decided to leave Whitewell behind and start afresh. She headed to Michigan to work at the Fisher Body automotive plant in Livonia. In 1958, she gave birth to her son, Richard. However, financial difficulties forced Ruth to make an agonizing choice. She allowed her workplace superintendent, Richard Hanchett Sr., to adopt her son in exchange for covering her expenses. With the adoption process finalized, Ruth left Livonia and embarked on a new chapter of her life in California. But this was not the end of Ruth's journey. Her son Richard would experience a tumultuous life, marked by a drug overdose and a long coma. Ruth's efforts to reconnect with her son would unveil a complex family story that extended beyond her mysterious death. Fast forward to February the 16th, 1974. Ruth married Guy Rockwell Moldavin, an antiques dealer based in Reno, Nevada. 4 months before her tragic demise, the couple paid a visit to Ruth's family in Whitewell. During that visit, there was a strange feeling in the air around the couple, and everyone in the family noticed it. Ruth's grandniece, Brittany Novogonsky, remembered that Ruth acted differently when she was with Guy Moldavin. Guy Moldavin was often controlling and over-possessive. As the summer of 1974 was ending, Guy Moldavin went back to Tennessee by himself, leaving Ruth in California. He told her family that she had strangely disappeared from their home in California. Ruth's sister-in-law, Jan Terry, remembered that Guy Moldavin didn't stay for long and didn't say much about where Ruth was. Ruth's brother, James, decided to go to California and got a private investigator to help him find his sister. The investigator's findings left the family bewildered. He reported that all of Ruth's belongings had been sold, and it appeared she had left the state of her own will. On November 2nd, 2022, the Massachusetts State Police made a big announcement. They were seeking information about Ruth's deceased husband, Rockwell Moldavin, born on October 27, 1923, and passing away on March 14, 2002, due to a chronic illness. He got married several times, but his marriages were often troubled, leading to divorces. In 1958, he married Manzanita Aileen Manzi Ryan in Idaho, and both Manzi and her daughter disappeared in 1960. Their body parts were found in his septic tank, but he wasn't charged. He later married Evelyn Marie Emerson and faced charges for stealing money from her family. There were suspicions about his involvement in the murder of Henry Lawrence Redbeard and the disappearance of Barbara Jo Kelly in 1950. He moved to Chula, California in 1976 and was involved in various activities, including radio hosting and working at a tobacco shop. On August the 28th, 2023, a shocking revelation finally brought closure to the Lady of the Dunes case. Guy Rockwell Moldavin was officially identified as the perpetrator of Ruth Marie Terry's death, closing the last dark chapter of this 5 decades long cold case.